Good morning, Facebook friends, YouTube friends. Thank you for attending. I am flying solo this morning, so it's going to be a little bit more challenging for me to get into the chats. So please put your questions in there, though, and I will try to get to those at the end if that works for you. So otherwise, feel free to reach out to me. Let me put my 248 252 7283 is my direct phone number. Feel free to reach out to me. Always happy to help you any way I possibly can. So let me jump back here and we are going to get started in just a moment. Okay. Well, thank you all for attending today. I appreciate everyone's time, especially Saturday morning, 10 a.m. So today we are going to go over the ways to get your credit score up quickly in order to qualify for a lot of the down payment assistance and grant programs that I tend to connect people. So in the interest of time, I've got a couple of appointments right after this. So I'm going to kind of dive right into it. If you have any questions, please throw them in the chat box. I'm going to try to address those as you type them in, with exception to Facebook, YouTube. I'll try to grab those at the end. So who is today designed for? Today is for people that are struggling with credit issues, specifically people that are in that either 5 to 600 credit score range or people with no credit scores. So if you've had recent bankruptcies, repossessions, collections, anything like that, we're going to address how to deal with those today, how to rebuild credit. And also, this is just for anybody that wants to understand how the mortgage industry looks at credit and how we can, I guess, for lack of better words, maybe manipulate things to get a quick spike in your score, and just to teach you how you can best handle some of those hurdles that may have popped up on your credit history. So why do I do this? Well, right now the rental market is in a pretty sad space right now, and what you get for your money is very disheartening. The quality of rentals is not out there, and looking at some of the numbers that they're forecasting for the rental market for the next 5 years, there it doesn't look like there's any relief in sight. In fact, I'm located in southeastern Michigan, and right now, two-bedroom apartments in the Detroit metropolitan area just surpassed $1,350 a month. And if somebody would have told me that 5 years ago, when they were probably around $1,000 a month, I wouldn't have believed it. But right now, they're forecasting rents to increase 5% a year nationally over the next 5 years. So if that's the case, we're going to be looking at two-bedroom apartments at the $1,700 a month range where we are. Now, other areas of the country, they'd love to have that if you start looking at the East Coast, West Coast. But with that being said, it's all relative. So don't be surprised if that 5% hits everybody year over for the next 5 years. So the other side of it is there's a lot of misinformation out there for people with regards to how to fix their credit. There's no shortage of companies out there that want to charge you to fix your credit. And many of the times you can do a lot of the lifting yourself. So versus going with some of the national companies that are more just trying to charge you a monthly fee and keep you on that fee as long as they possibly can. So there are a lot of tools out there that can build credit quickly and fix credit very quickly as well. So I'm not a big fan of overpaying for a lot of those credit repair agencies that are out there. Now, if your credit's in such rough shape that we may need to use them, they do have their purpose, but I don't see any reason to do it more than, a 3, 4, maybe 5 month period. And every now and then I run across people that have been doing it for a year plus, and there's no reason to be on those credit repair treadmills, just paying and paying and not getting results. Because I find most of the results really occur within the first 3 to 6 months. So, uh, with that being said, let's just jump right into what our goals for today are. Well, the main purpose or the main reason is I like to teach people how to get their scores up 60 points in 60 days. We're going to give you some tools that are out there that can do that. We're going to also show you how to identify areas on your credit that are ripe for just a quick spike in your score. And if we need to add new credit, we're going to give you some tools there, teach you how to add new credit. And we're going to help you set some reasonable goals with predictable timelines. So anytime I tell you about a tool or a technique, I try to give you a timeline as well. So you can know how long it's going to take to possibly get some things turned around. So I know this firsthand. I probably, a lot of people spill over from my webinars that I do during the week, teaching people how to purchase with very little money out of pocket using down payment assistance and grant programs. So most of the people that have been on that webinar know my story. And no question, I went through some very tough credit challenging times in my life where I went through a bankruptcy, foreclosure, and had to rebuild. Now, granted, that was about 13 years ago, but I find that a lot of the things haven't changed. 13 years ago, actually, it was a lot harder to rebuild credit. Right now, there are a lot of tools out there that can help you and make it a lot easier for you. Hence, you don't need to hire a lot of those credit repair companies the way that you used to. So, anyways, with that being said, let's jump into the industry. Right now, with regards to the mortgage credit world, there are 3 credit bureaus that they work with: TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. There's actually more credit bureaus out there now, but those are the big boys. So we want to focus on those 3 credit bureaus. So the ideal uh, situation would be for you to get copies of all 3 of those credit reports. And we're going to go over that in just a moment. So we want to try to get the credit scores for all 3 credit bureaus. Now, keep in mind, credit scores run anywhere from 300 to 850, and there's all kinds of credit algorithms out there to generate credit scores. Ideally, we want to focus on the FICO scoring models, the 2, 3, 4, 5 scoring models. And we want to look for the middle credit score. And I guess if the highest one is below 600, we want to work on that too. But ideally, right now in the mortgage world, at least with the down payment assistance and grant programs that I help connect people with, those typically focus on the middle credit score. Okay, they're not averaging them, they're not blending them, anything like that. So, that being the case, we want to make sure that the highest score and the middle score are above the threshold for approval, depending upon the approval number that your particular program is focused on. So ideally, the credit scores, we want to see those 600 or maybe up to 640 or higher. The higher they are, the more money we can typically stack for people to use to get into purchasing a home with very little money out of pocket. So most creditors, keep in mind, only report to 1 or 2 of the 3 bureaus. So for example, if you've got an automotive loan, say Ford Motor Credit, I believe Ford only reports to 2 of the credit bureaus. Don't know which ones they are, and the reason that is, the creditors actually have to pay to report your information to the credit bureaus. So keep that in mind whenever you're challenging things. We're not typically paying the credit bureaus for the information. Okay. So we're not the customer. The customer is the people that are furnishing the credit to them. So as a result, that's where the Fair Credit Reporting Act came out, to actually give us a voice in this credit conversation. So most of the techniques that we teach people as far as manipulating credit scores and getting things removed is holding these credit bureaus and creditors accountable based on the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So now, when it comes to the Fair Credit Reporting Act, there are a lot of techniques out there. I'm not going to go into them in too much detail today. I'm just going to be giving you the ways that we can isolate things on your credit to get a quick spike in your score, to get those middle credit scores up and the higher one to the point where we can get you approved. Now, there are a few things that go into your credit score. Number one, the obvious, payment history. Okay. So any payments that are recent are going to impact your credit the most. Okay. Ideally, most of the programs don't like to see late payments within the last 12 months. Now, an isolated late payment, we can many times explain away. If it's routine, it's not going to work. So we need to have a clean slate when it comes to payment history for autos, credit cards, things like that. If you do have a late payment, it's not that uncommon to call the creditor. And if it's an isolated incident, they might work with you. Okay. I find that works 25% of the time. Just pick up the phone and ask them, hey, you know what? Didn't realize it was late. Brought the payment right up to date. I'm applying for a loan and I just discovered this. Is there any way that you can remove that? Now, the first line of defense when you make those phone calls is going to be, sorry, sir, it was in fact a late payment and we cannot remove it. I always tell people respectfully, say, thank you very much. Can I please speak with your supervisor? I find that the first line of defense when you make those calls doesn't work out real well. The second line of defense, that's when you can start making some progress. And if that person can't help, ask for the third person. And eventually you can get the answer that you want. I always find patience and persistence is the key to a lot of these things. Actually, the older I get, I think it's the key to life. But anyways, when it comes to paying off your collections, I'm going to tell you, please do not do that. Think twice before you pay off a collection account if something goes that far. Okay. And I'll go over that in details in just a few moments. But when it comes to payment history, 35% of what goes into your credit score is based on your payment history. Now, if you do have a recent late payment, it's going to impact your scores dramatically. After 90, 60 days, your scores will rebound a little bit, but it's not going to be till after 1 year that you're going to get not all of that back, but your scores will go up quite a bit. Okay. The second thing, credit utilization. So if you do have credit cards, utilization is the amount that you owe on the credit card versus the limit. So if you have a credit card with a $300 limit and you owe $150, that's a 50% utilization. Ideally, we want to get that utilization down below 30%. Okay. Now, utilization accounts for 30% of what goes into your credit score. So this is one of the ways that we can manipulate things very quickly. So for example, if you have a credit card with a $300 balance and it's a $300 limit, you're at 100% utilization. Right now, I'm finding if you pay that utilization down below 30%, I'm seeing people that are getting a 30 to 40 point lift in their credit scores. A couple of years ago, it was a 20% lift. So in my opinion, I think what's happening is the credit card companies are almost rewarding people with real-time results. And what I mean by that is credit card default rates are skyrocketing right now. So if you're able to pay down your credit cards, they're giving you a bigger lift right now because you're paying your credit cards down in an environment where the default rate's skyrocketing. So that being the case, people are getting a higher lift in their credit scores from that. I'm also coaching people right now, please don't pay your credit cards off to zero, okay? If you have routinely had any late payments or large balances or maxed out your credit card limits, I'm starting to hear chatter that credit card companies are actually closing accounts when you pay them off, okay? So if coaching people, I tell people pay them down to below 30% and leave it. Okay. What we don't want is them to go, thank you for paying your card off and close your account on you. You don't want that. Okay. That's going to come back and haunt us. So not seeing a lot of it, but I did have a couple people over the past 60 days that have encountered that. So not saying it's a trend yet, but let's beware of it. So 30% of what goes into your credit scores is that utilization. Length of credit history is 15%. So if you have credit out there, do not close those accounts. Okay. Even if you don't even know what it is, every now and then I'll see somebody goes, hey, I've got for some reason, this finger account showing up on my credit and it's not mine. Okay. Well, every now and then we get lucky and you got an account showing up. If it's late payments on it and it's in bad standing, then obviously you want to call and get that removed. But if it's an account out there open and in good standing, do not close it. If you close accounts, you're going to lose that length of credit history and a trade line, and it's going to fall right off. Okay. So it could adversely affect your credit. So leave those things out there. So don't close accounts and don't pay any loans off prematurely. If you have an auto loan, it's only got a few payments left on it, paying that auto loan off could very well reduce your credit scores, because what's going to happen is that loan's going to show up as paid as agreed next month, and you're going to lose a trade line, which is a line of credit. So don't pay them off prematurely. So every now and then I'll have somebody that'll get tripped up on that. So, all right, next thing I want to go over is how do we handle some of the big baggage that's out there and some of the bigger conversations right now? Student loans are, boy, I haven't heard about student loans in a couple of weeks now, but I think a lot of people are starting to get saddled with repayment, forced repayment. So if it's at all possible, right now, if your student loans are deferred, okay, try to get them into a repayment status. We can't get you approved for any of the down payment assistance programs or grants or for a mortgage while it's in a deferred status. So unless they count a substantial payment against you, and which kind of derails things usually. So some lenders, if it's deferred, they will take a 0.5% and count that against you for a payment, which many times will derail the conversation. So what I always tell people is, try to go out there and ask the lender to put the loan on an income-based repayment plan. Okay. There's a gray area with that right now, but we want to make sure that that income-based repayment plan is not zero. Okay. It's unfortunate right now, but the student loan area it's kind of a gray area. So if you can get an income-based repayment plan, do it with a payment. Tell them, I understand your income's low, but I'm tired of paying interest. I want to have a payment associated with it, whether it's $10, $20 a month. I have programs available where we can take student loans. If it has an income-based repayment plan of $10 a month, that's what we're going to use to qualify you with on your debt to income ratios. And debt to income ratios are just what they calculate you can afford when it comes to your mortgage. Okay. So if your loan's in forbearance, those days, from what I understand, are being extinguished. So they are pulling the loans out of forbearance. If your loan's in default, that's actually a pretty easy remedy. Call, ask them if they can go on an income-based repayment plan if your income's low enough, and they'll pull them out of default. Now, if your student loans are in default, they are actually still working with people. And if you make your payments on time for 90 days, they will flip it from default to paid as agreed. So let's say, for example, you have a student loan in default right now. Your credit scores are in the mid 500s. It's showing up as a negative on your credit. If you call them, get an income-based repayment plan, pay them 3 months in a row or over 90 days, and they won't take all the payments at once. You got to pay it 3 times in a row. They will flip it from being in default to paid as agreed, which could take I had somebody last month, their score went from 550 to 650 because it went from a negative to a positive. big change. And it was all based on her income-based repayment plan. Okay. So there are ways to handle student loans. Never hesitate to reach out to me. Um, so they're always, it's kind of a moving target right now. I wish I could be a little bit more concrete. I do have a question in the chat right now. My student loans are paid off, but they're still on your credit. Well, as long as they're paid off, that's all we care about. Okay. As long as you have the documentation and you can furnish that to the mortgage company or to myself, and I'll get it to the mortgage company, we can send that information to a third party company that can get those things removed. Okay. In the meantime, you should be reaching out to your previous student loan servicing company and asking them to correct it. You can also challenge it. So if you're on one of the free platforms, go ahead and challenge it. And for example, if you go on Credit Karma and you can actually dispute different things. And so that's another reason why I don't really favor some of the credit repair companies, because these are things you can do on your own. Okay. Repossessions. Repossessions are a big topic, at least in my area. So I do get a fair amount of people that co-sign loans for people and that maybe bought a automobile on a B lot that broke down shortly after purchasing. There's a whole lot of honorable reasons for repossessions. So there are different ways to possibly take care of them. It really depends on where you are in the process, whether it just happened, it was a few months ago, or a year ago, as to what's the best way to address those, and who the creditor was. I mean, some creditors are certainly easier to deal with than others. Sometimes the quick answer is if you can reestablish payments for the short period of time and get it into a repayment status, then we can get you across the finish line for some of the grants and down payment assistance programs we help connect people with. If that's not an option, maybe the balance is low enough where we can possibly pay it off. But everyone's a little bit different. I always encourage people to schedule a call with me. And let me get my number here. Here is a link to my calendar, nodownpaymentrequired.org/book. That is a link to my calendar. Feel free to jump on there, schedule a call with me. I'm always happy to discuss your credit situation and see what I can do to help you get a quick boost in your scores. So someone is asking on the student loans, it's still showing up on the report. And they will. Anytime you pay a debt off, it shows up on your credit report for the following 7 years. So it should show as paid, though. That's the thing. So it should show the balance is zero and paid off. So if it doesn't show that, that's when you need to reach out to them and dispute things. All right. Next thing I want to touch on, bankruptcies are always a big topic of conversation. Chapter 7 bankruptcies and Chapter 13. There's two types of bankruptcies. Chapter 7 is when you wipe the slate clean. So you basically are extinguishing debts. If it's a secured debt like an auto loan or maybe a mortgage, you're going to reaffirm and possibly pay those or just let them go. And then discharge the debt in the bankruptcy. Now, on a Chapter 7, like I said, you're wiping the slate clean. It takes 2 years after a Chapter 7 is discharged before we can get you approved for some of the grants and down payment assistance programs. But we need to start building credit right away. There are a lot of tools out there where we can rebuild your credit in 6 months. 6 months, we can start rebuilding it. In 12 months, you're going to have decent credit. After a year and a half, you could get credit in the 700s. So it's very easy to rebuild credit after a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And in my opinion, the reason is the algorithms that generate credit scores, they know that you did a bankruptcy and the slate was wiped clean. So they give you a pass on it and they encourage you to build that credit up right away. Now, if you get any late payments or have any late payments after a bankruptcy, it's going to hit your credit scores harder than if you didn't go into bankruptcy, because the algorithms know you got that pass. Okay. So it's very important that you make those payments and don't bite off more than you can chew after the bankruptcy. Okay. Because right after a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you're typically flooded with credit card offers and all types of stuff. So just be careful with what you jump into there. And the reason you're flooded with offers is they know you can't declare bankruptcy for another 10 years, I think is what it is. So, their chance of collecting is a lot greater. Now, on a Chapter 13, we can actually get you financed for a house after 1 year in a Chapter 13. Now, a Chapter 13 is when all of your debts are put together, negotiate the balances down, and then you repay your creditors through a trustee that's appointed by the bankruptcy court. Okay. So if you make your payments on time for 1 year to the trustee, you can purchase a house as long as those payments were on time, like I said, and with the approval of the trustee. Now, I've only had a trustee fight me once, where we had to actually get an attorney involved. We ended up getting it done. It worked out. But most trustees will let you do it knowing how terrible the rental market is right now. So it's not uncommon for trustees to approve for people to purchase a home, provided it makes sense. And what I mean by the last gentleman I did, he had a family. He had 3 kids. He was actually lived in Waterford. His kids were in Waterford schools. He couldn't find a decent rental in Waterford under $2,000 a month for his family, but we could find a home for him to buy for $1,700. So it made sense for him to buy. So trustee gave us a little pushback in the beginning, but ultimately let us do it. Okay. Now, after your Chapter 13 is done and you've paid everything back, unfortunately, the way the guidelines are set up now, you have to wait for 2 years after the Chapter 13 is paid off. There's some chatter about having that change. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but that is the way it is in the Chapter 13 world with the mortgages. Now, the big thing that always trips people up are collections. So when it comes to collection accounts, anything over 2 years, I tell people, please leave those alone. Okay. We will try to, if we need to negotiate the balances down or need to do things about it, we'll do that after you get your approval. If the collections are less than 2 years, it's a case-by-case basis as far as what we do with them. If it's a medical, we just leave those alone. Okay. The medical collection accounts don't affect the credit scores, or they're not supposed to affect the credit scores any longer. Okay. Now, if your collections are 1 to 2 years old, we want to run those through a simulator to find out what's the best way to handle those. Sometimes we pay them off. Most of the time, we might just let them sit there. If the collection accounts are less than a year old, those are things that we need to address. If it's within, 1, 2, 3 months, we want to pay those off. Usually, if we pay a fresh collection off, your credit scores will go back up. They're not going to go back to where they were before the collection was placed on the credit, but your credit scores will retrace and go up 50% if it's within a couple of months. Now, if the collections are, say, older than 3 months, 3 months to a year, that's a case-by-case basis, depending upon the size of the collection. We might want to run those through a simulator, but we want to know what the types of collections were, what the reason was. Many times, if it was an innocent thing, we can usually, a letter of explanation might take care of it. But those are things that we need to address. Okay. So collection accounts, if it's over 2 years old, like I said, please do not pay them. What you're going to do is you're going to reactivate them. So let's say, for example, you have a collection account from a cable company. Common thing. Didn't return all the remote controls when you moved from one apartment to the next, and they threw a $50 collection on your credit report. It's 2 to 3 years old. If you pay that off, they're going to report it on your credit as collection paid as agreed, but that's going to show up next month on your credit. Your credit scores will go down. Okay. So what you're doing is you're reactivating those old collection accounts. I equate it to it's a sleeping dog, just let it lie. Do not just leave it out there. If the underwriter, which is the person that actually approves you for the down payment assistance or grant programs to purchase a house, requests us to pay those off, that's fine. We can do that, but that'll be after we've got your credit score built up and locked in. So my goal is to get your credit score up to where you're approved, get that score locked in, and once it's locked in, it's good for 90 days. If that approval is subject to paying off the collection, we'll do it. That way, if your score goes down, it doesn't matter. Okay. All right. Next thing, I'm going to go over my steps, how I look at credit, 60 points in 60 days. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get copies of your credit reports. I always tell people you can go to freeannualcreditreport.com and get your credit reports. We want all three: TransUnion, Equifax, Experian. If you are able to pay for the credit scores, the FICO scores, great, get those. Now we'll know what the credit scores are and which ones we have to work on. Remember, we are only working on only need 2 of the 3 to be above whatever threshold. So let's say, for example, you need a 600 credit score. You have a score that's 580, 560, and 500. We don't care about the 500. We're going to work on that 560 and 580 and get those both above the 600. So we want to find out which credit bureau has those higher scores, and that's what we're going to focus on. Okay. We want to determine those scores so we can focus on what items we can work on to get you a quick lift. So is it paying down a credit card? So if we focus on let's say you've got a credit card with a $300 limit, $300 balance, we know if we pay that card down, we're probably going to get a 40-point bounce right now if we can get it down below 30%. So great, that's one way of doing it. Okay. We're looking for ways that can impact your credit as quickly as possible. So we need to do that by understanding your credit profile and what's driving those scores down. Is it late payments? Is it collections? Is it credit utilization? Is it that you have a thin credit profile, which is nothing more than just you don't have a lot of credit? We need to add some more. So if we need to do that, then there are tools out there. A lot of the programs that I work with, you do need to have at least 2 trade lines, which is just 2 lines of credit. Now, those can be things that are on your credit currently, or we can build trade lines sometimes with alternative lines of credit. And I'll go over those in just a few minutes. So we want to run those proposed adjustments through a simulator. Now, there are simulators actually on Credit Karma, where if you do certain things and play with it, you'll see how your credit score will react. Again, another reason not to really engage the services of some of these credit repair companies. Now, if we need to add new credit, there are ways to do that. We can do that by the way of secured cards, secured loans I really like. Becoming an authorized user is another way. And I'll go over how to best approach people for that in just a moment. The third thing you can do is if your credit is really down there, and what I mean is in the low 500s, maybe even 400s, then we might want to send some dispute letters out. Okay. For that, we might want to engage the services of a credit repair company for a short period of time, certainly no more than 6 months. Okay. If you need an introduction on that, I have a couple of companies that I do recommend, but those are kind of last resort. I always like to learn people's credit profile before we take that out. Okay. I'm always about trying to save money along the way. Okay. All right. Here are the do's that we're looking for. Number 1, we want to subscribe to a credit monitoring services. I always tell people Credit Karma is one of the best things out there. I know people in the mortgage world don't necessarily like it because it can get confusing. I like it because it's free and they have a lot of tools at your fingertips. Okay. So I always suggest going out there and getting acquainted with your credit before engaging the services of a mortgage company or things like that. I always tell people, go out there, call me, schedule a call with me, and we'll go through your Credit Karma and we'll try to pick out some of that low-hanging fruit that we can pick to get a quick spike in your score. Now, remember, Credit Karma is only going to have 2 credit bureaus, Equifax and TransUnion. We need to pick up that Experian report. And for that, I always tell people, go to Experian and get that. Okay. If you want me to introduce you to a lender that will pull your mortgage credit report and work with you on possibly getting a quick spike in your score, we have options there too. I have a gentleman at Belong Lending that does a really good job at that. They do charge $70 for that. And the reason they do is that's going to be a full mortgage credit report along with the credit scores. But what it will do is it'll give us all the baggage out there, and we can run you through a credit simulator and just tell you how we can approach things from there. Okay. The next thing, you can sometimes manipulate your credit utilization or balances on your credit cards by asking for an increase. Okay. It's a little bit harder to do nowadays, but if you have a credit card, think of it this way. If you have a credit card with a $300 limit and a $300 balance, and you call that credit card company and ask them to increase it to $1,000, now your credit utilization's at 30% next month on the credit bureaus without paying that thing down. Okay. It's a pretty easy fix, but with the environment that we're in right now, it's a little harder to do than normal times. So sometimes I find that it's just easier to pay that $300 balance down below $90, which is $210 to get it down below that 30% utilization, and you'll find you'll get a big bounce in your score that way. Okay. Please do not pay your credit card balances off. All right. That's pay them down. Don't pay them off. Again, we don't want them to close those cards on you. And I find that if you have a slight balance on your credit card, we'll give you a higher credit score than if you pay it down to 0. And what I mean slight, if you pay it down to $10, $20, leave a little bit of balance, you'll get an extra point or 2, in my opinion, than if you pay it down to 0. The next thing, if you don't have those trade lines on your credit, what we can do is ask a friend or family member if you can become an authorized user. Now, I don't know how you are, but I have a hard time. It's always a hard time asking friends for money. We're not asking them for money. We're asking them for help. And I find that this word track tends to work well. If you've got a friend that has good credit, maybe has a credit card with a low balance, and he's had it for a couple of years, instead of asking them for money, just ask them for help. And by the way of just saying, hey, you know what? I've been approved for a loan or for down payment assistance program or grant to buy a house, but I'm running short on a line of credit. I need one more line of credit on my credit report. Now, I don't need any money. I just need another trade line to show up on my credit report. Is there any way that you can possibly add me to your credit card? I don't need the card. I just need help with another trade line. And you're not asking for money. All you're asking is a friend or family member to pick up a phone and have you added to a card. Okay. So it is a lot easier to do than asking for money. That's for sure. So the next thing is opening up a secured card or a secured loan. Those are both great tools. If you need a secured card, Capital One's a great one. I'm going to go over that in a few minutes. There's a secured loan through a local credit union here in southeastern Michigan, which is Michigan First Credit Union. Probably one of the best tools out there for building credit. If you don't have that 12-month trade lines or 12-month history that we need, and again, remember, you need to have 2 accounts that have a 12-month history on your credit report. We can use alternative lines of credit. So if you have rent history, cell phone bill history, car insurance history, subscriptions, gaming subscriptions, Netflix, Hulu, anything like that, we can get those things added to your credit report. All we have to do is have that 12-month history printed out, and we can give it to a third-party credit aggregator that will put that stuff on your credit report so we can get you approved for the down payment assistance and grant programs. So I'm going to go over some of those in a few moments. If we have any big collections that are going to trip us up on our approval, we want to get those under control as soon as possible. So any collections over $2,000, we want to figure those out sooner than later. Okay. We don't always want to set up payment arrangements on those. Depending upon where your credit score is, we might not have to. Okay. Now, there are some don'ts that we want to do. One thing we don't want to do is we don't want to apply for new credit unless we know we're going to get it. Okay. So if your credit score is below 580, applying for a new credit card probably isn't the best thing to do. Applying for a secured credit card, heck yes, chances are you're going to get that. What we don't want to do is have a bunch of inquiries in your credit and not have you get new credit. Okay. The algorithms are getting smarter. They are calculating that in there. So if you have a 5, first of all, every person that peeks into your credit is going to hit it a little bit. Okay. So we don't want to do that any more than necessary. Remember I said, don't pay off your collection account. So don't blindly pay those collection accounts off. Anything 2 years or older, leave alone. If we have to negotiate those later, we will. Less than 2 years in a case-by-case medical collections, no way. Just leave those out there. Credit simulators for anything 1 to 2 years old and anything less than a year old, we want to talk about and deal with that on a case-by-case basis. Remember, don't pay those credit card balances off. Just pay them down. And don't pay off any loans prematurely. And don't become an authorized user on a new account or an account with any late payments. And here, most importantly, I want to echo this because this is becoming an issue right now. Do not employ any debt consolidation services. And these companies are starting to surface. Okay. I don't like to say any disparaging words against an industry, but these people are not out there to help you. Okay. There are credit counseling services, as they say, they're not there. They're not counselors. They are predatory and they are taking advantage of people on a routine basis. So I'm going to take a minute to go over what they do. They go out there and tell you, don't worry about it. We're going to take care of all those accounts that you're drowning in right now. They're going to tell you, can't sleep at night, call us. What they do is they're going to take all your accounts and instead of sending your money to all of your credit card companies and your auto loans or whatever, don't do it. Send it to us. We'll negotiate those balances down and we will save you thousands of dollars over the next couple of years by going into our credit counseling program. What happens is these guys will collect all the money from you for probably about 6 months. So all of the amounts that they say they've negotiated with you, they're gonna contact all your creditors and say, hey, John's in credit counseling now, please don't bother him. And they won't. Your creditors won't bother you. But behind the scenes, they're not happy about it because they know what goes on. The credit counseling companies collect all of their money up front. So if let's just say, for example, you've got $1,000 a month going out in credit card bills, and they go, we're going to negotiate this down to $400. We're going to get rid of all the interest on your loans. But that $400 a month, you send that to the credit counseling company for 6 months. They're collecting $2,400 in fees. None of that money goes to those creditors. The credit counseling companies are getting paid up front. And it's only when your creditors get so ticked off that they're just about to go, forget this, we're just going to put them into collection, then they start sending the money to the collection companies or to the creditors. So doesn't help you, okay? Does help the the debt consolidation companies. So when it comes to doing that, the mortgage world and the credit world treats you just like you're in bankruptcy. So if you're going to be treated like you're in bankruptcy, like a Chapter 7 bankruptcy where you're renegotiating, if you're at that point in time, you're better off just going into bankruptcy and at least having the bankruptcy court protection. So credit counseling, in my mind, I know that there are probably a couple of good credit counseling companies out there. And if anybody has them, please share them with me. If they're an honorable company, I'll be happy to pass it along. But I find that those companies don't typically advertise. The other companies are all about late night television or whatever. They're out there. So they're reaching people and they're surfacing now. So I'll leave it at that. But just the same, think twice before engaging the services of some of these debt consolidation companies. All right. So those are my steps. Here we go. This is how we're going to build credit. Secured credit cards. Picking up a secured credit card can get your credit scores up 20 to 30 points in 30 to 60 days. Capital One, I think, does a very good job at this. You can pick them up on Credit Karma. Typically, you're going to send them a $300 $300. They're going to send you a credit card with a $300 limit. So typically what they'll do is you sign up for it. They send you a credit card to get you excited. Then you send them the money. Okay. They'll put that money on the card. As soon as that card's got the money on it, you want to use it as soon as possible. Okay. It forces them to set it up in their system and to report your progress to the credit bureaus. Okay. So I always tell people, charge a tank of gas, keep a little bit of money on there. Usually in 30 to 60 days, your scores are going to go up 20, 30 points. Okay. Try not to charge it up above that 30% if it's at all possible. Okay. If you do have to do that, try to pay it down a week or two before that card reports to the credit bureaus. That's going to keep your credit score up as high as possible. Next thing, secured loans. This is one of the best tools out there. If you're in Southeastern Michigan, Michigan First Credit Union, I think, has one of the best ones out there. And what a secured loan is, you actually go to a credit union. I find that that's where some of the best ones are. I think Michigan First, and I'm trying to think of the other credit union that does it. The name escapes me right now, but what it is, you give them, for Michigan First, at least $525. They charge $25 to do this. And so the $25 is gone, but the $500, they take that money and they put it in a savings account so you can't touch it. It's going to look like it's your money and on your account, but they lock it down. But they're going to give you $500 back right away. They're going to put $500 in a checking account, so you get the money right back. But you have to pay that $500 off over a 6-month period. After that loan's paid off, after 6 months, they release the money in the savings accounts back in your hands. The reason I like this is this shows up on your credit as a personal line of credit, one of the hardest things to get. So a lot of people that I work with, their scores go up 40 to 60 points in 45 to 90 days on this one. Okay. Now, Michigan First, I believe, reports to all 3 credit bureaus. Okay, so it doesn't report to 1 or 2, like I said earlier. It reports to all 3. This is a true credit building tool and is one of the best things out there. So if your credit scores are down, you get a secured card at through Credit Karma and Capital One and do the secured loan from Michigan First. Boom, your scores could go up 60 points in 60 days quite easily, possibly higher. Okay, next one I want to talk about, authorized users. This works about 90% of the time. 10% of the time it doesn't. I won't go into the details on why. If you are going to ask them to be an authorized user, reach out to me. I'll go into the details. But for the most part, we want to make sure you're asking a friend or family member, make sure it's a seasoned account or old. It has a low balance, low utilization, and good payment history. Okay. There are also companies out there that sell access to authorized users too. So haven't really discovered one that I like yet, but they are out there. So, but they're not cheap. They charge a few $100s. So, and they only do it for a few months. So you've got to make sure you're ready to make that move. But it is a good tool to use. Alternative trade lines. When it comes to, this is for non-traditional credit. So we can have credit added to your credit report. So if your rent's been paid on time for 12 months and we can prove it, great. We can get that added to your credit. Same for auto insurance, PO box payments, storage units, cable, cell phone, renter's insurance, utility bills that aren't on your credit report. We can get those added. Monthly subscriptions, Netflix, gaming, gym memberships, all of those things can get added. I had a gentleman a couple of months ago. He was actually living in his future mother-in-law's basement with his fiance, and he was a gamer. He had, I think it was Xbox, PlayStation, I don't know, one other one, World of Warcraft, whatever other gaming thing there was, but didn't have any credit, but he had these things automatically taken out of his checking account every month. So we were able to get 12 months bank statements, give those to the lender. They were able to give it to a third-party credit aggregator and get it added to his credit report. And boom, we've got 3 trade lines, basically $10, $20 a month that we were able to get added to his credit to get him approved. Okay. So there's a lot of ways to get things done that a lot of people don't tell you about this stuff. It's a little bit of work, but it's not that much. Okay. So, so this is just the different ways that I help people get things done, because a lot of people don't even realize alternative trade lines are even an option. Credit monitoring services. It's important that you sign up for Experian and Credit Karma right away, in my opinion. Okay. We need to get a pulse on where your credit is, and more importantly, set up the alerts. So as your credit changes, they're going to alert you, hey, your credit score went up. Or more importantly, if something hits your credit right away that isn't good while we're in the middle of the process, then we need to find out and deal with it as soon as possible. Okay. And don't get me wrong, stuff happens. Okay. I don't know about you, but life, I've been around 60 years. Life always gets in the way of my plans. Okay. I feel like it's 2 steps forward, 1 steps back if I'm lucky. So, anyways, if your life is anything like that, reach out to me. I know a lot of the shortcuts here, but it's Credit Karma and Experian, great tools to have, so we can keep a pulse on where your credit goes while we're helping you rebuild it. All right. Credit restoration services. There are a couple out there. Lexington Law, actually National Credit Care just got rebranded into another company. So these companies, I think there was a lawsuit where they had to redo things there. So I need to update my slide on that. This just happened within the past 30 days. So you'll see these companies charge anywhere from $100 to, actually, I heard Lexington Law is up to $200 now for their premium package. You don't need that. Okay. I would rather see you jump into a different type of coaching program than to do that. Okay. But I always tell people, if you're in this position and need help, schedule a call with me. I'm happy to go over your situation, put myself in your shoes, and tell you exactly what to do. Because like I said, I've been there. I know how to get it done. So with that being said, where do we go from here? I always tell people, if you haven't attended one of my webinars to purchase homes with very little money out of pocket, sign up for that. nodownpayment.required.org. I tend to teach people how to leverage down payment assistance programs and grants to purchase with just a few $1,000s out of pocket. Either way, book a call with me. I love learning everybody's situation, putting myself in their shoes, and teaching them how to do it. My calendar is always open for people. I tend to book 20-minute calls. It's a free consultation and more of a strategy building call. Whether it's 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years, it doesn't matter to me. I've been doing this a long time. I love what I do. It's the fact that I discovered this segment of the basically real estate industry 10 years ago, for me, was an absolute gift. It was a light bulb moment for me. And I get to go into work and help people tap into down payment assistance programs and grants and get homeownership. I mean, it's great. It's for me, it's been an absolute gift versus the younger version of myself, where I felt like I was just chasing numbers to satisfy my own sales career. Which, don't get me wrong, it's great, it's rewarding, it put food on the table, but it wasn't really who I am. Right now, I'm a happier version of myself the past 10 years since I've discovered my gift is more giving this education than anything else. So anyways, if you have any questions on the credit, please reach out to me before you engage the services of any of these credit repair companies. And like I said, whether it's 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years, it doesn't matter to me. I've had some people, if you were on my last webinar, I had somebody who said they've been following me 5 years. I felt, gosh, that's awesome. I appreciate that. So, and not to burden you with his story, but life gets in the way of our plans and things get derailed, but we just need to keep pushing forward and you will eventually get there. I find that most of the people that I work with just need the confidence that they can get things done. And that's, I think, 90% of the battle. Once people are committed to it, I'll help you, coach you on that path. Okay. I'm actually putting together a coaching course that I'm going to be unveiling in the next month or two. If any of you ever want to be introduced to that, gosh, I'm all about coaching people and pushing you on the right path. Again, whether it's 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, doesn't matter to me. So let me know. Oh, and more importantly, if you have any friends or family members, please help me get the word out. Okay. I find that there are a lot of people out there that need help, particularly the younger people, that 35 and under range. Okay. My kids are 24 to 35. Now, my 35-year-old, the switch went on for him at a young age to purchase a home, but my other kids, not so much. And I'm in the business. And I'm finding that there's a whole generation out there that is giving up on home ownership. And now, for various reasons, a lot of them think it's just cost preventative. Okay. Now, I think if you're here and you're long enough, you know that it's not about the money. Okay. I'll find you the money. I find sometimes that they feel like they don't want the responsibility. And I guess I understand that to some degree, although you do need a roof over your head, so you might as well own it. But I also find that there's like a third segment that's surfacing now. And that's people that are like, well, wait a second, maybe I don't want to own it, but I understand there's an investment reward to possibly owning. So if any of you are thinking about being investors, that's another category altogether. So a lot of these down payment assistance and grant programs that I help connect people with are tailored for people that want to own anywhere from 1 to 4 unit homes. So maybe you don't want to make this your forever home, but you might want to move in and rent a few out and build some wealth. Some of the wealthiest people I know are people that did that, maybe put it on a 15-year mortgage, and hey, maybe you're retiring at a pretty young age that way. Okay. If I had to turn the hands back of time, boy, that'd be an awful nice way to go. I wish I would have known then what I know now. So, but just the same, there are different options for people. And I like to make sure that everybody knows what's out there. So, any other questions today? Great. That question might be better suited for jumping in on a one-on-one. So reach out to me and book a call. And as I'm saying that, let me put the book a call link into the YouTube and Facebook friends. There you go. Okay. There's a link to my calendar. Please reach out to me, schedule a call. Always happy to learn your situation, put myself in your shoes. So it's at the top of the hour. Thank you very much for joining me on a Saturday. Hope you have a wonderful weekend and hope our paths cross again soon. Thanks.